The hospital hallway was almost silent when Daniel Carter pushed open the wrong ICU door at 2:17 in the morning. He was exhausted, carrying the weight of a 12-hour shift, a tiny paper bag containing his daughter's favorite cookies, and a heart that had been broken so many times he had stopped expecting life to be kind. He thought the woman lying unconscious in the bed was his elderly neighbor, the patient he had promised to visit before going home. He didn't realize he had entered the room of someone completely different. He didn't know that the woman connected to the machines was one of the most powerful business leaders in the city. And he certainly didn't know that the simple song he was about to sing would eventually change both of their lives. Daniel was a single father raising his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, alone. His wife had passed away several years earlier, leaving him with a little girl who still sometimes asked why her mother couldn't come home. Daniel worked every shift he could get at the hospital, not because he loved being exhausted, but because rent, school supplies, groceries, and Lily's medical appointments didn't wait for anyone. He had learned to hide his tiredness behind a smile. Every morning, he packed Lily's lunch, fixed her crooked ponytail, kissed her forehead, and promised that things would get better. Every night, he came home hoping he had kept that promise. That evening, Lily had been staying with Daniel's sister while he worked. Before he left for the hospital, she had asked him to sing the song her mother used to sing whenever she was frightened. Daniel wasn't a professional singer, and his voice was rough from exhaustion, but Lily loved hearing it because it reminded her of home. After his shift, Daniel received a message that Lily had fallen asleep clutching the small photograph of her mother, and something inside him ached. He decided to stop by the ICU before leaving the hospital to check on an elderly patient he knew. But fatigue clouded his judgment, and he opened the wrong door. Inside, a blonde woman lay motionless beneath a white blanket. Machines quietly measured every heartbeat. A ventilator helped her breathe. Her name was Victoria Bennett, although Daniel didn't know that yet. She was the founder and CEO of Bennett Industries, a company worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Newspapers had called her fearless, ruthless, brilliant, and untouchable. But inside that quiet room, none of those words mattered. She was simply a woman fighting to wake up. Daniel looked at the chart, realized he had entered the wrong room, and should have walked out immediately. But something stopped him. The woman looked strangely alone. There were expensive flowers on the table, a designer handbag near the chair, and several unopened messages on a phone, but no family member sitting beside her. Daniel thought about Lily lying alone in another room somewhere, waiting for someone to tell her that everything would be okay. So instead of leaving, he pulled a chair closer to the bed. He remembered the song Lily had asked him to sing earlier. Quietly, almost embarrassed by his own voice, Daniel began singing it. His voice wasn't perfect. Sometimes it cracked. Sometimes he forgot a word and hummed the melody instead. But the room seemed to soften around him. The machines continued their steady rhythm while Daniel sang about home, hope, and finding the courage to keep going when life became difficult. If you believe that kindness can reach people even when they cannot speak back, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Sometimes one small act of kindness can become the beginning of a second chance. Daniel kept singing for several minutes before finally standing. He whispered that he hoped she would wake up soon, apologized for entering the wrong room, and quietly left. He had no idea that a nurse standing outside had witnessed everything. The next morning, something unusual happened. Victoria's medical team noticed a tiny change in her condition. Her heart rate had briefly increased during the time Daniel had been singing. Doctors couldn't say why. It could have been a coincidence. It could have been a response to sound. Nobody knew. But the nurse remembered Daniel. When Daniel returned to work later that day, his supervisor stopped him. Daniel immediately worried that he was in trouble. Instead, she asked him about the woman in ICU room 17. Daniel explained the mistake, expecting criticism. But the nurse told him that Victoria had no immediate family visiting her regularly. Her business partners had been coming and going, but nobody had stayed through the long nights. Then she told Daniel something that left him stunned. Victoria's company had been preparing to close one of its community programs because of financial pressure. Daniel didn't understand what that had to do with him. Days passed. Daniel continued working, caring for Lily, and trying to keep his small family together. Then one afternoon, he received a message asking him to come to the ICU. When he entered Victoria's room, her eyes were open. She couldn't speak yet, but she was awake. A nurse explained that Victoria had been slowly regaining consciousness. Daniel stood near the doorway, unsure what to do. Victoria looked at him for several seconds and then glanced toward the chair beside her bed. The nurse smiled and told Daniel that Victoria had apparently reacted whenever someone mentioned the song. Daniel felt tears gather in his eyes. He had spent years believing that because he was poor, tired, and ordinary, there wasn't much he could offer the world. Yet the one thing he had given freely, his imperfect voice and a few minutes of his time, had meant something to someone who seemed to have everything. Victoria eventually recovered enough to speak. She learned about Daniel's struggles and his daughter. She also learned that the community program her company was considering closing had helped families like his. Something changed inside her. Instead of closing the program, Victoria ordered her company to expand it. She created scholarships for children of struggling families and emergency assistance for single parents facing unexpected hardship. Daniel never asked her for money, and Victoria never treated him like a charity case. She simply told him that sometimes the person who reminds you why life matters deserves to be heard. Months later, Daniel still worked hard, but his life had changed. Lily received a scholarship for her school. Daniel was able to reduce his overtime hours and spend more evenings with his daughter. And every once in a while, he visited Victoria, not because she was powerful, but because their lives had crossed during one of the darkest nights either of them had ever experienced. One rainy evening, Daniel watched Lily sing the same song her mother had once sung to her. He realized something beautiful. He had entered the wrong room that night, but perhaps his heart had taken him exactly where he needed to be. Before we reach the ending, comment, kindness always matters, if you believe one small act can change someone's life. Daniel never became famous. He never appeared in newspapers. He never received an award for what he did. He simply walked into the wrong room while exhausted and chose, for a few minutes, not to walk away from someone who looked alone. And sometimes, that is what courage looks like. Not something dramatic. Not something heroic. Just a tired father sitting beside a stranger, singing softly in the middle of the night, never knowing that his kindness was giving hope to a woman who had spent her entire life being strong for everyone else. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe for more emotional stories. Because you never truly know how much your smallest act of kindness might mean to someone who desperately needs it.